Hi, hello, welcome back. My name is Freya. I'm a knitter living in Glasgow, Scotland with my wife Karina and my two cats, Kiska and Nanook. Nanook has joined us. He's being a bit naughty, so if there's noise, I'm sorry. So this is a bit of a different video for me. Usually I do podcasts, but I decided to film a little process video. Just because, well, there's hardly any videos like this online about like machine knitting garments, so I thought I'd throw my hat in the ring, why not? And also, this is kind of like my first go at this, so just like for selfish reasons I thought it would be fun to capture that. So basically I knit this hand knit top. This is the Thea top. I knit this a couple of months ago, I think, and I really liked it, but there's some things that I would like to change about it if I was to knit it again. Like the bottom rides up, like the front part rides up and the back doesn't, and those kinds of things. And also this is quite a thick fabric, and I wanted one in a thinner fabric, so I thought, why not try and recreate this on the machine. I thought recreating something would be a lot easier than just straight out writing my own pattern, because then I could take the measurements from this and then do all the maths and calculations from there, which in my head makes more sense than just starting from scratch. It just makes it a bit easier for me. So yeah, I filmed, I mean it's not a tutorial I would say, but it is the process of, you know, what I went through to get the final product. So this is my starting point. This is the original hand knit top. Just a very, very plain tank top. This is knit out of Drop Spell, which is a cotton, linen and viscose blend. I bought, for the machine knitting one, I bought a cone of 100% cotton. I think it's perhaps a light fingering weight. I bought it on eBay, super cheap. So I'll link that below if anyone's interested. It was a great yarn to knit with on the machine. Quite strong. It didn't snap or anything like that. It wasn't splitty, so that made it a lot easier. So yeah, I'll leave you for now, and then I'll leave you to watch all the little clips that I have smushed together, and hopefully it's somewhat interesting. Yeah, thank you for watching. I will leave links below. I will have timestamps so you can skip past boring bits if you find them boring, or just skip to the end if you want. Before I show any of the knitting, I want to run through my process of writing up the pattern. So I wrote everything myself. I did all the maths myself when it came to like how many rows or how many stitches. I want to give full credit to Amber. Is it Herds or Hads? I always get mixed up. I took her lesson. It was a crew neck jumper lesson, and she ran through how to knit it, how to do the maths, how to write your own pattern and do your own maths. So I'm not going to tell you how to do the maths, because I feel like that's a bit like, why am I giving that out for free when, you know, she's got a paid for like tutorial, and it would feel a bit weird. So if you're really interested in learning about this or learning how I did it, please go and check that out, because it is well worth it. Like, it's really worth it. So this is my second version. So I knit my initial version, and then this is like for a different yarn, but it's essentially like the same shape and it's exactly the same process, just a little bit more concise because it's my second go at it. So this is where I started. I drew out all the measurements, wrote every little measurement. You need to get like the little triangle of or decreases, even like you need to get all these tiny little measurements to then go ahead and get all of these like rows and stitches and stuff. So first of all you do a gauge swatch. I've not got mine to hand, that's bad. 50 stitches and 50 rows. You do the gauge swatch, you get the gauge, then you work out how to find out what you work out what 1 centimeter is in how many stitches are in 1 centimeter and how many rows, and then you can go ahead and do the maths to get all of these little numbers. So that's where I started. It's once you know the maths, especially with Amber's tutorial, like it's very well put, and she's got written instructions and video instructions in that. So if you do that class, you'll understand where I'm coming from. But again, I don't want to like give it out for free. So I wrote the pattern on my laptop, but I printed it off just because it's easier for me to be on the machine and work from a paper pattern. Now I have never followed a machine knit pattern. I've also never written one, so this is like completely catered to like how my brain works. So yeah, this might look insane to you, or you might be like, oh yeah, I get that. So I'm writing things like the tension, the cast on. What I like to do is how many stitches I cast on, and then how many stitches are either side of 0. It just makes it a lot easier to count, because instead of counting 114, you're then counting 57, if that makes sense. So all of the tensions, how many rows. I also like to count up how many rows total I'm doing after each set, like should be on the row counter after each section. To have all these checkpoints, like I've got these checkpoints and these checkpoints, it just keeps you right. So yeah, I obviously missed out a couple of like things that little tips and tricks that I should have written down, so I've just gone ahead and like penciled that in. And that's the pattern. I guess if you're interested, I could like share the pattern with you if you can make sense of it. Honestly, like I'm not a great teacher. So I can send you the pattern. If you can make sense of it, that's great. If not, I'm sorry. So that's kind of like vaguely kind of summing up everything. I hope that makes sense. And hopefully that's like could be like a starting point for you to think, maybe I could do that, because it's essentially as simple as, writing up all the measurements, and then all you need to do is the maths to see how many rows and how many stitches. The most complicated part is figuring out the decreases and the rate of decreases. Like, for example, for this one, I decrease 1 stitch every row for 10 rows, and then I decrease 1 stitch every 2 rows 6 times. If you can understand that. So the rate of increases is like the hardest part, and also the short rows can be quite tricky, but again, Amber explains all of that really, really well, so I just recommend checking that out, because that's where I learned everything. So I was putting the clips together and watching it back and doing the voiceover, and I thought I would actually talk through the construction, because I thought it might be handy, just because like the clips that I did wasn't very linear, and I didn't really explain like the process and the construction and stuff. So just to like give like context, I guess I thought I'd talk it through. So first of all I start with the front piece. So for this pattern I'm knitting it bottom up. So I start with the rib, cast the rib on, knit the rib. There's only like 12 rows including the setup rows, so it's quite small. Then I transfer to the main bed, knit up this plain stockinette part of the body, and knit until I want to do the decreases for the armhole. So at this point I'll do the decreases at both sides, then I knit a tiny bit of stockinette to get to the neck part, then I will scrap off for the neck, and then at this point I'll start knitting the separate sides. So I'll start with one of the sides, do the neck decreases and knit a little bit of plain stockinette, then scrap off those stitches. Then I'll jump back to the other side and do the same decreases, stockinette, scrap off. Then I will go onto the back piece and I will do the same, only after the arm decreases I just knit stockinette. Then when I get to the top I'll do a couple rows of short rows. I'm not sure what it's called. I think it's partial knitting on the machine, but I'll just call them short rows. And then I scrap off each section. So I scrap off, in my, for this pattern it was 13 stitches, then it was 60 stitches, and then 13 stitches for the shoulders and the neck. So then I'll have all of these stitches on scrap yarn. Then I will attach only one shoulder together. So the only part at this point that's attached is one shoulder. That means I will then go on to do the neck ribbing. So I'll cast it on, knit a couple of rounds, transfer all the stitches back to the main bed, and then I will pick up and place all of these stitches onto the main bed so that I can knit those two sections together, attach them, and then I bind it all off and then take it off the bed. Then I will go and attach the other shoulder after I have done that ribbing, but before I have done the armhole ribbing. So then both the shoulders are connected, nothing else is connected at this point. I will then go on to do the arm ribbing, armhole knit ribbing, arm ribbing. Again the same thing, knit the ribbing, transfer back to the main bed, put all of these stitches onto the main bed as well, cast off. Then I will simply just sew together both sides and then it's all connected. I hand sewed the sides, I didn't show you that, but I think I never remember, but I think it's a mattress stitch. I can't remember, I'm sorry, but it just gives such a seamless finish. I hope you can see that. Yeah, so I hope that sort of helps understand what I was up to, but again, this isn't really a tutorial, so I think I just kind of wanted to make sense of a couple of the clips that I filmed. So yeah. Now jumping straight into the knitting. This is a hyperlapse of me knitting the entire front panel. So starting off with the ribbing, then I'm transferring the stitches onto the main bed. This is like a 45-minute clip condensed into a 2-minute clip, I think, maybe a little shorter than that even. So that's me just knitting like the main body, like the main stockinette part, and this is me now transferring the stitches over to do the decreases. If anyone's interested, I use a 3-prong tool. I think it's just personal preference, like where you want the decreased stitches to lay. I don't know why I chose it, but I did. So now I'm just scrapping off the middle couple of stitches for the neckline. This keeps the stitches live, so when you go to put stitches back on to the bed to attach it to the neckline ribbing, you know, it makes it easier. It's a nicer transition, I think. So yeah, this is me now working the two sides separately. So doing the decrease for the neck, then knitting just plain stockinette for a while, and then I'm scrapping off these parts too, so I keep those stitches live. So when I then attach the shoulders together, they're live stitches too. It just makes it simpler and easier, for me anyway. So this is a real-time video instead of a hyperlapse. I think this is the neckline ribbing. So the order of things is that I knit the front panel and knit the back panel. Then I attach one of the shoulders with like one side. What? How do I say that? I attach one shoulder to each other, like the back panel and the front panel shoulder, but I leave the other one separate. Then I knit the neckline ribbing, and then I place the stitches for the neckline that are from like the main part of the top back onto the bed, and I'll show you that after this. But I wanted to show a real time video just because it takes so long. Obviously it's so much faster than hand knitting, but it's still slow. Like, you are like hand knitting every row, like there's no electronics or anything like that. The setup for the ribbing is like the slowest part. Also, you'll see me like holding on to the ribber attachment for each row, because if I don't, then the carriage gets like stuck up on needles and then it bends it won't pass over, and it's just like a bad time. I think it's doing that because like my table's uneven, but it's so I have to hold it like really still with my hand, which is quite painful. But this is me now putting on the comb to then hang the weights. So you put the comb up between the stitches, then you put the wire through, and that sort of catches every stitch, and then you can then hang on the weights to the comb. This is like really satisfying in terms of like when you take it off the comb. I don't think I've got a clip of it, unfortunately, but it is so fun. So the setup rows are a little bit different to like normal like rows of the ribbing. You do a couple of different things like with the carriage and putting different settings on and all that stuff. I always just follow the instructions from the manual. I kind of have vaguely like committed it to memory, but I just follow the instructions. It's just so much easier, and I know I won't go wrong that way. So yeah, this is me just finishing off the ribbing. As you can see, I'm really pulling at that. It can be like really physical. So I thought it'd be interesting to put in a little clip of me changing the carriages. So when you're knitting ribbing, you use different carriages to like if you were just knitting on the main bed or just knitting stockinette. So I'm taking the attachments off. This is like the attachment you use when you use the ribber, and then I'm putting on, well, first of all I'm lowering the ribber down. That part always like really stresses me out. It feels so like aggressive. Anyway, that's me putting on like the normal attachment that you use just if you were using the main bed, and then I will put the yarn into the yarn feeder. I have forgotten to do this many a time, and I've accidentally knit across the row, like the stitches, and if there's no yarn in it, it just drops all the stitches, so that's not fun. So this is me now putting all of the stitches back onto the bed. So as you can see, I've got the rib already on the main bed. I transferred it onto the main bed and it's just waiting on there, live stitches, and then I am putting, this is for the neckline, so for this part these are the live stitches. You can kind of see like the pink scrap yarn below it, so yeah, this is me putting the stitches on. I've sped this up like so much, like it takes so long. This is me then knitting across, so obviously you'll have 2 stitches on each needle, and then I knit across, so then it knits those 2 like panels together, and then I will cast off. So I use the latch tool to cast off. It's just my preferred way. I've also, this is real time, this part, and then I've sped it up afterwards. Just to show you like how slow it actually is in real life. Like you can get into a rhythm with this one, definitely, but like if you drop a stitch or something, like, oh, then you have to fix it. And that's the worst part of machine knitting, is fixing mistakes can be really like fiddly. Fiddly? Is that a word? I don't know. It, like, in my experience, like fixing mistakes with hand knitting is a lot easier. Maybe that's just the way like my brain works, I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, this is me now casting off. This is just the way I do it because I don't have a linker. I think if I did have a linker, I probably would still cast off this way, just because I would have to scrap off the ribbing, then I'd put the ribbing onto the linker, then put the main like top onto the linker. So it's just like cutting out like an extra step. Now this is a really satisfying part of me pulling the like pulling it off the bed, and this is me showing you that it's attached. There is actually a stitch that I missed, like you can see a hole there. I didn't actually catch that stitch, so I had to go back and sew it in. So this is me now washing it. I'm actually washing it with washing up liquid, and that's because it is like cotton yarn on a cone specifically for machine knitting, which means it's still got spinning oil in, and washing up liquid is like specifically designed for getting rid of grease. I'm being quite rough with it. I wouldn't be this rough if it was like an animal fibre, let's say, or you know, a hand knit something or other, but because it's cotton, it can take it. The water got so dirty. I don't know if you can really see it, but it was so dirty. And this is me wearing them. I wanted to do side-by-side videos just to show the fit. The machine knit one on the right hand side turned out a tiny bit tighter, and the armhole depth was kind of a bit shorter, and the neckline is a little bit wider. That wasn't on purpose, that's just the way it turned out. So that's me showing the increases and decreases, and yeah, I hope you find that interesting. Okay, that's kind of the end of that. Here's a machine knitted one and here's a hand knitted one. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know. If you didn't, don't let me know. Like and subscribe if you want. maybe if this goes down well, I might film more machine knitting process videos, even a tutorial if anyone's interested, because why not? I mean, I've never written a machine knitting pattern before, so maybe I would do it all wrong, but I feel like video tutorials accompanying a written pattern would be fun. Thank you for watching, goodbye.